Hi, this is Ray from Honeytop Bees. You probably heard the news. We're in Bee-mageddon as we're discovering that commercial beekeepers across America have had higher losses than normal this year. I'd like to kind of give you a layman's explanation of what's going on and why we're concerned about it in the beekeeping industry. It's all over YouTube and it's starting to get all over the news about the big losses that have taken place this winter among commercial beekeepers. And I'd like to kind of help you to understand what's going on in case you're just like, I'm kind of a novice, I don't really understand what's going on here. And so the purpose of this video is to try to give a little bit of context to that based on my own research and interviews that I've heard with people. And then when I get done, please stay tuned. I'm going to share with you the result of the loss of beekeepers and how it's causing an increase of theft of beehives in California right now. But first of all, let's talk about what's going on. And I'm going to do it in question and answer format. Is this only affecting commercial beekeepers? And the answer is absolutely not. Now, it's easy to jump to conclusions when you lose your hive, and especially if you're trying to judge somebody else's hives. Did you treat for mites properly? Or did you have proper nutrition inside of your hive and all that? There's all of these common reasons that we have known why maybe our colonies are not strong enough to make it through the winter. And cold can certainly play a factor as well. But all things being equal, the losses this winter are higher than normal. And it's not just among commercial beekeepers, it's among smaller beekeepers, sideliners and hobbyist beekeepers, and backyard beekeepers that only had 1 or 2 hives, and they've lost them both over the course of the winter. Now, the reasons why different people lose different beehives can vary, and some of the reasons can be management related on the part of the beekeeper, but not always. And that's why we're concerned, because there are normal losses that take place in beehives every winter. As a matter of fact, if you look at a video that I just recently posted last week, it talks about the bee crisis and how many colonies are lost. So just to give you some context, in 2023, of the people that reported, it was discovered that about 48% of all colonies were lost during the course of the year. In 2024, that number jumped up to 55%. Now coming out of the winter of 2024 into January of 2025, we're discovering that some, not all, but some commercial beekeepers have lost 70, 80, 90, or some of them have lost all of their hives. So if you can just imagine what this is like. You have 10,000 hives. It's your livelihood. In January, you get your hives ready to send them to their first pollination stop in California. Ultimately, they'll maybe move from California to go pollinate watermelons or apple trees throughout the rest of the season. This is how you make your money. You rent these beehives out as well as process honey from these hives. And you go and you start inspecting your hives and you find out that most of them are dead or extremely weak. And the pollinators in California have a certain threshold of strength that they want the hives to be at when they come onto their almond groves in order to make them be effective pollinators. And so when you go in and discover that all your hives are lost, not just your normal amount of losses, but that you have these huge losses, it's just devastating in so many ways to that beekeeper. Will he be able to recover? I mean, some of these beekeepers are losing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or maybe even more money as a result of all of their livestock, their bees, being dying off over the course of the winter. So it's just very devastating. Now, it can be equally devastating for a small backyard beekeeper that had 10 hives and they lost 7 of them over the course of the winter. I say equally as far as proportionally, but that's not our livelihood if you're a small beekeeper. Like myself, I usually keep around 40 hives, and I've had greater losses this winter than normal, but I haven't lost all of my hives. But I can personally recover because it's not depending on this for my income. But when my whole livelihood was dependent on this, like it is for a commercial beekeeper, it's really devastating. The next question is, why are we finding this out right now? Did all the bees just die on one day? And the answer is, no, they didn't all just die in one day. But the reason why we're kind of discovering this now is because it's being reported. So most backyard beekeepers, hobbyists, small beekeepers, they don't record their losses or report their losses to anyone or make their losses known. What's happening right now is because commercial beekeepers are getting their hives ready for pollination, they're going in and discovering that their hives are weak or have perished over the course of the winter. The next question is this happening to all beekeepers across the nation? And the answer is no. Now, it's definitely cause for concern because when we have losses that are 50% higher than normal, we want to go in and say, okay, what is going on here? But it's not happening to all commercial beekeepers. I personally know several commercial beekeepers, and some of them have said maybe their losses are a little bit higher. Some of them said their losses are normal range. They plan for losses over the course of the winter. That's just part of the ebb and flow of being a beekeeper. But it's not happening to everybody, and that's good news. It certainly is high enough that there's reason for concern, but to make it sound like the sky is falling and every single bee in America is dying probably would be a little bit of alarmist, but it definitely is going to take some time for the beekeeping industry to recover from this. And here's why. Commercial beekeepers do a lot for even the backyard beekeepers. So for example, in my particular case, we buy package bees from South Georgia from a commercial beekeeper that has 10,000 hives. And they are a package supplier. And they're not just our package supplier. I talked to my friend who owns this commercial bee yard in Georgia, and she ships packages all over the United States, all the way up to Maine and the Midwest. I mean, she ships everywhere. Now, she didn't suffer much loss, but had she suffered significant loss of 70, 80, 90% of her hives over the course of the winter, she would not be able to produce those packages, which would lead to a shortage of bees, not just among commercial beekeepers, but for all the sideliners and the hobbyists and the backyard beekeepers as well. So it kind of trickles through the whole system when the commercial beekeepers are not able to produce the mass amount of hives that we're used to having them produce for us in packages and in nukes. So what happens now? Well, there's some people that feel like we might have a shortage of bees, which of course will raise the price of buying bees for the average person this year. That would of course also lead in turn to an increase in honey prices this year as well, because there could possibly be less honey. But some of this is yet to play out. I think the reason why people are concerned is if you have, say, 10,000 hives and you normally lose, say, half of them in the course of the year, and so you go down to 5,000, you lost that 40, 45%, 50%, we'll just use for even numbers. If you split all those hives, you're back to 10,000 hives. And so that's kind of the ebb and flow that happens in beekeeping, where that average rate. But if you lose 90% of your hives, and you only have 1,000 left, and you split them all into 2,000 hives, you're still nowhere near 10,000 hives. And it's going to take a significant amount of time for you to build back up your hives. And if you keep splitting them, they're not going to be as available for pollination or for honey production. Which brings me to my article. This article was just published a couple of days ago in the Sacramento Bee in Sacramento, California. And the article reads this: nationwide shortage of honeybees has coincided with the rise in beehive thefts as growers in the Central Valley prepare for the almond bloom, a pivotal time for the health of the nut, which is one of California's most lucrative crops. Beehive thefts in California have reached record high in recent years, building on what's a nearly decade-long trend, leaving beekeepers collectively short thousands of hives and millions of dollars. And so now, because of the scarcity of beehives, there's been a surge in beehive thefts that are being reported in California right now, which is in and of itself disturbing. Beehive thefts on a small scale can certainly be very hard to track, and on a commercial scale definitely requires some equipment to be able to steal beehives. So I don't really know the ins and outs about how these beehives are being able to be stolen in the numbers that are referred to here, in the hundreds and even thousands of beehives that are being stolen. But as bees become more valuable because they become more scarce, there's becoming a market for selling these stolen hives. And so this is where this whole thing kind of is leading to on some scale. And hopefully this is not going to end up becoming a bigger problem among people having to protect their beehives from theft. Here's the bottom line concern about this whole problem. Are we just experiencing some things that maybe we need to do better? Is there a new mite treatment? Are they becoming resistant to certain mite treatments, and is that the cause? Or is there a new reason that is stressing our colonies and causing them to not be able to sustain themselves? And so that's kind of the concern that's going on in the bee industry right now, and it's yet to play out. There's universities, et cetera, that are looking into this and doing some research, and hopefully we'll be able to get some answers for it. But right now we're just kind of in that period of like, whoa, okay, losses are so much higher. But I think what a lot of people maybe fail to understand is that some losses in massive amounts are somewhat normal in the beekeeping industry. So, whether those are 20%, 30%, or nationally, the average is 48%. But that's factors in all kinds of different circumstances. So it's very normal that there are some losses. So we're not going from 0 loss, is what I'm trying to say, to 70 or 100% loss in the course of 1 year. That's not what's happening. But we are seeing, a 50% increase in loss. And that is the core reason why people are concerned about the possibility of us having a bee shortage this year if it should play out that way. So the question is, what do we do about it? Well, for me as a hobbyist beekeeper, there's really not a lot that I can do. Hopefully the people that really are the movers and shakers in the industry can help get the research that's needed to help us discover what's happening so that our colonies will not perish at the rate that they were. It's been a long time since they've been perishing at this rate. I think it was 2006 or 7 or something like that since we've had the colony collapse disorder that was kind of similar to this in magnitude. But other than that, we just kind of have to wait and see what the research says, and and hope for a really strong season this year so that we can recover some of the losses that have happened across the nation in regard to our bee colonies. Maybe you have some additional thoughts, maybe you have some additional information that you'd like to share. I hope you'll leave it in the comments and get the discussion going. I don't claim to have a corner on the market of information in regard to this. I don't think really anybody does right now. So my purpose was not to try to disseminate information about what happened or why it happened. And I'm certainly not the voice of research to be able to say this is where the train went off the tracks and here's why. But I just wanted to help you to understand what happened. But if you have additional information, I hope you'll join in the discussion, share some comments, share some thoughts, and we'll catch up with you soon. God bless.